The BBC in the 1960s seemingly had struck gold with science fiction television, in part helped by Nigel Neal's Quatermass trilogy and their take on 1984, the previous decade. The former paved the way for the invention of Doctor Who, a phenomenally successful programme that remains popular today. The 1960s section was transmitted from 1963 to 1969 and clocked up 256 episodes. Concurrently to it, for the most part, the company created and screened Out of the Unknown, which brought a lot of similarities mainly through cast and crew, sometimes reused props, and even a crossover episode happened. Likewise, it was sci-fi but with heavy elements of horror and much more adult aimed. It too was popular, and thanks to repeats, there was no year during its tenure from 1965 through to 1972 where it wasn't on television, except 1968. It collected a run of 49 episodes across 4 batches, which were mainly adaptations of science fiction stories by the likes of Isaac Asimov and John Wyndham. Ultimately, after a 4th series of almost exclusively horror content, the BBC decided to not go ahead with a 5th series. Whereas not known exactly as to why, the show being expensive to produce could very well have been a reason. For example, the average budget per the 12 episodes of Series 1 was £6,000, but it seems that this would increase over time, with Mark Ward's book detailing that overall show budget exceeded £200,000. The popular Beachhead, as an example, cost £9,895, with the later on Series 3 episode, The Naked Sun, costing £11,214 to produce. Recently, to the first series being commissioned and shown, the company spent over £30,000 on the Daleks master plan. For perspective. Unfortunately, like many of the Time TV shows, tapes for it were reused, leading to episodes being absent from the archives. The 2014 DVD of the show represents approximately only 50% of the programme. Helmed by the BFI, the 7 discs represent the 20 existing episodes, but additionally has 4 episode reconstructions, an incomplete episode, a 45-minute making of documentary, 7 image galleries, 11 audio commentaries, an interview with a director, and a film insert. It was very much an ultimate culmination, gathering, and presentation to the public of what was left of the show. However, what led to this DVD box set, and what are the stories behind the findings and recoveries of thought lost material from the show? Plus, is there any hope for more finds? The story of the restoration of the BBC's groundbreaking anthology is long and at times strange and mysterious. Let us begin at the start with the first recovery of material from the show. At this point in time, Sue Malden had helped to instigate the end of the junking policy by the BBC. When surveying their archives in regards to Doctor Who, they found that only 47 of the 256 episodes broadcasted between 1963 and 1969 were intact, with Unearthly Child being the only serial to exist complete. Jon Pertwee's run also suffered, with 59 installments of 128 preserved. This Doctor's episodes here were mostly from seasons 10 and 11, with only a third of his serials being complete at this point. The majority of the missing episodes of Doctor Who from season 7 through to 11 were found quickly, and an additional 16 from the first and second Doctors were also found at this timeline point. Also during this year, Ian Levine was able to view the BBC's film archives, which was housed at Villiers House, a company building. He ended up making the discovery of 61 missing episodes, which included the first Dalek story complete and several other serials. At the same time, Ian was also able to make the first find of missing material from Out of the Unknown, a total of 17 complete episodes. This included the 10 episodes of Series 1 we have today in the form of 16mm telerecordings for overseas sales, this being almost the entire first season, with the exception of The Fox in the Forest and Andover and The Android. Also recovered in original broadcast formats were Series 2, Episode 1, The Machine Stops, Series 3, Episode 3, The Last Lonely Man, and then 5 episodes of Series 4, To Lay a Ghost, This Body Is Mine, Death Day, Welcome Home, and The Man in My Head. The 6 colour episodes here are preserved as 625 line colour 2-inch quadruplex videotape copies. The recovered part from Series 2 at this time has raised questions and discussion, however. It is known that The Machine Stops won the top prize at a film festival in July 1967, and it is debated if this copy found was either one used for presentation here or the one used by the BBC for the original television broadcasts. Another question about this E.M. Forster adaptation being found is the following. Based upon the success they had with the film festival, the BBC sent a copy of the Series 3 episode, Beachhead, to the same festival for consideration later on. Because the facilities for showing colour prints were not available here, a 35mm black and white copy was sent. Now, since the first of these 2 episodes that were showcased for this reason at Trieste, a location in Italy, exists, it seems odd that the other isn't retained today. The fact that Beachhead was prepared as a 35mm black and white copy for the festival highlights the possibility that the preserved print for The Machine Stops is indeed the Italian copy, as it is in the same format also, which is the main basis of this story to my understanding. Another point to this being the Trieste copy of the episode is that in Mark Ward's book within the section on surviving material from the show, it has NB, not broadcasted, one scene has been edited, in brackets next to it. To me, this would insinuate that it is the festival print, as it could very well be that one scene had to be cut to get it to screen there. Wikipedia offers a different story, however, stating within the tab on Series 2 included in the main page on the show that it exists as the original 35mm film negative. It was recorded this way as opposed to videotape because of possible complexities in regards to the production. To me, it would seem likely and cost effective for the BBC to send Trieste the UK broadcast copy with one scene edited out to facilitate screening requirements, and it was this slightly edited copy that was found, although there could indeed be other possibilities. Irene Shubik, show creator, went on record saying that it was the most challenging production they oversaw, with the installment using an extra hour of recording time along with 40 extras. Cited possible complexities in regards to editing meant that it was recorded on 35mm film. The BBC could have kept the negative in turn as 35mm copies weren't destroyed as often by them, and they struck an edited positive print for the festival from it. Unfortunately, with my research in this video, there are going to be a couple things that I am ultimately not going to be able to conclude on definitively, and will leave you with some mysteries based upon my findings. The Italian copies of the Machine Stops and Beachhead here being one of them. The Villiers House Hall overall remains the largest find of missing material from the show to this day, and is unlikely to be beaten. In 1981, Ian Levine would put forward a proposal for a 13-episode 5th series of the show. Some things for it were established, such as Roger Parks returning, who was the script editor and producer for Series 4, but it did not happen due to a lack of resources for special effects. Later on, at around 1986, he would discover and return a copy of Series 2, Episode 3, Lambda 1. In between these two events, Hammer Studios created their television series, Hammer House of Mystery and Suspense. It remade two currently missing episodes of Series 4, being The Last Witness, retitled as A Distant Scream, and The Uninvited, retitled as In Possession. For A Distant Scream, it was filmed in Cornwall at the end of 1983, whereas The Last Witness appears to have been studio-based with some location filming. The writer Martin Worth apparently pitched a storyline of the former to script editor Don Houghton out of desperation, when another of his ideas was rejected for mystery and suspense. In Possession doesn't have a lot of details in Mark Ward's book, but does mention that actors Bernard Kay and Vivian Burgess acted as Mr. and Mrs. Prentice here, who played the roles of the Ramseys in The Uninvited. This show, as seen by Britain in 1986, has had a UK DVD release, which is now rare and out of print, but a more common German DVD is available and has the original English audio available for 11 of the 13 episodes as a feature. A reconstruction of the original exhibition of the second story has since been made available. As a relevant side note, additionally preserved is a 1968-1969 colour TV series made by Hammer Studios, similarly called Journey to the Unknown. Its 15th episode, remade Out of the Unknown Stranger in the Family, an existing episode of Series 1. However, this show has not had a home media release. When it came to overseas sales of television episodes, the physical scissoring of the prints in order to create censor cuts was common, which was in order to remove material that was deemed unsuitable for audiences by foreign TV companies. Several finds of these have occurred over the years, like in 2002 where ones from Doctor Who, The Web of Fear and The Wheel in Space were found, having come from New Zealand prints. Australia was also one such country that did this, but had a policy of retaining the cuts at their censorship board. Conflicting a little here, according to a page on TARDIS fandom, censor clips from the majority of the William Hartnell Doctor Who serials were destroyed here, this from An Unearthly Child to The Gunfighters, prior to an investigation by fans Damien Shanahan and Ellen Parry. Nonetheless, in 1996, they still managed to uncover some extracts from the show, including the chilling surviving sequence of Maggie Harris being gassed in Fury from the Deep. Concurrently, 2 censor cuts from Out of the Unknown were found. The first of these is a brief 5-second trim from Immortality Incorporated. The episode, one that was seen by the Beatles, followed a group of technicians in the year 2110 deliberately engineering a car crash on New Year's Day 1969. Their goal is to steal the mind of the victim at the moment of collision and to transplant it into a new host body. Showcasing a stomach stabbing with a sword, Zeta Minor speculates that the clip is most likely from the centre of the teleplay, and a lengthy sequence in which the character Charles Hull has employed hunters to kill him for a quote-unquote glorious death. The other is a 33-second snippet from The Last Witness. This Series 4 episode was a psychological exercise in which a dying man, Harris, is suffering from a delusional mental crisis and is trying to piece together what has been happening. He is able to mentally reconstruct that he is the survivor of a shipwreck, only to be tormented by a hallucination of 2 characters at a cliff edge, with one called David strangling the other called Anne. The half-a-minute excerpt showcases this phantasmagoria and is staged where the second and third characters are being unknowingly watched by the first at the top of a nearby crag. It is edited and presented so that moments of this scene are presented in different contexts of the characters and timelines of the episode. Witness ended with the revelation that the character of Anne was fleeing her abusive husband, Harris, with, I'm assuming, her new boyfriend or desired spouse, David. A piece of fabric which falls out of frame in the surviving excerpt is a mirroring of the murder that actually takes place where Anne is clutching some curtains as she is slaughtered. Basically, the majority of the clip seems to show David killing her, but it is a mirroring of how Harris is actually killing her. Wikipedia makes a brief and non-specific mention that 2 episodes of the show were planned to be released on VHS tape, which was shelved. It is likely that this would have occurred early on in the decade, as the BBC would issue 2 VHS tapes of Doomwatch in March 1991. One of these contained The Plastic Eaters and Tomorrow, the Rat, with the other housing The Red Sky and You Killed Toby Wren. To me, it would make sense to explore this avenue since they would have already done so with Doomwatch here. Upon digging into something mentioned further on in this section, a page entitled The Phantom Frame notes in a review of The Machine Stops that this was one of the episodes being considered for this ultimately abandoned home media release. It would be at around the same time of these VHS releases that a telerecording of Out of This World, Little Lost Robot was recovered. The archive preservation company Kaleidoscope had taken possession of the catalogue of ABC, and the company discovered the copy within the Pinewood Film Store of Lemire. Towards the tail end of this decade, a 1965 BBC Graphics Department showreel was discovered. This ended up containing the end credit sequences to both of the otherwise lost Series 1 episodes, The Fox in the Forest and Andover and the Android. Within the same section of the 1990s, half a dozen audio fragments of The Prophet and 5 from Get Off My Cloud began circulating. This surfacing likely happened because of the Doctor Who connection that these episodes had, not to mention that you can hear the Daleks in one of the clips of the latter, as they made an appearance in this episode. It turns out that the just mentioned audio clips were a part of a larger collection of fragments held and created by a sci-fi fan known as Trevor Wells. After having originally seen Quatermass and The Pit on broadcast, they became a big fan of the genre and considered Out of the Unknown as essential viewing. They initially used a BSR Sound Riviera 2-track machine to make recordings, but later upgraded to a 4-track Elizabethan LZ34 device. My information source site Zeta Minor insinuates that Trevor reused tapes, so if the following is comprehensive of what he recorded overall, I cannot confirm, but the compendium of what has survived and known to exist in addition to the 11 already mentioned is and or are 3 clips from Second Childhood, 2 short clips from The Fastest Draw, 1 longer clip from Satisfaction Guaranteed, 4 clips from Immortality Inc., 2 clips from Liar, 12 clips of assorted lengths from Something in the Cellar, 2 from Random Quest, 4 from The Little Black Bag, 4 from 1 + 1 = 1.5, 6 clips from The Fosters, and 5 clips from Target Generation. Mostly ranging from the series 3 episodes, Trevor only recorded snapshots of the stories due to the expensive nature of the tape being used. Nonetheless, significant moments have been retained, such as Daleks Within a Child's Nightmare, as featured in Get Off My Cloud. Zeta Minor also mentions that there are additional dialogue snippets from this episode as well. In 1997, a documentary entitled I, Robot, as a part of the series Future Fantastic was aired, and within was approximately 2.5 minutes from Series 3, Episode 2, Liar. This wasn't the first time this footage here was shown for a series external use, as it had previously been screened within Towards Tomorrow 2001 and Earth Prophecy in March 1969, approximately just 2.5 months post the episode's original broadcast. Due to this being screened, this is how we have this footage, and similarly, a 2.5 minute video extract from the Series 2 Asimov episode Satisfaction Guaranteed is also preserved, thanks to another episode of Towards Tomorrow entitled Robot being retained in the archives. This one here originally having been shown in 1967. It is for the same principle that clips from Story Parade The Caves of Steel also exist, with it being likely that the effect sequence for the dome was within the same show reel that the Fox and the Forest and Andover and the Android end credit sequences were held in. This 75-minute Out of the Unknown precursor only has 4 clips retained in the archives. Thanks to a page on it by 625.org.uk, we are able to discuss what there is left of the teleplay, details on how these excerpts survive, and other oddities. The second existent extract came by way of a 9th of December 1965 broadcast of Tomorrow's World. Within is a partial representation of the title sequence for the episode, which immediately transitions into the opening scene of the teleplay, which is the murder of Dr. Sarton. 80 seconds is the given length of this cut on the website. However, this is based on a rough print of the Tomorrow's World episode, which so happens to exist also, that contains a longer version of the clip than what was broadcast in this scenario, although some of it is mute. The transmission was intercut with BBC Radiophonic Workshop composer John Baker working. Scene 33 from The Caves of Steel featured Bailey and Daniel discussing the possibility of the murderer being a robot with Naomi Chance's character, Dr. Gerrigal. It is this that was utilised in an edition of Horizon, broadcasted on the 8th of July 1965. This program itself is also lost, but does have film inserts for it remaining. 625 states that at the time of the writing of their article that the full extent of what is within the insert material is unknown, however. Despite this, they list that parts of the same content is utilised in a 1997 edition of Future Fantastic titled I, Robot. From this broadcast, they are able to detail that shots 319, 324, and 327 from the overall episode are used, which survive in turn. For the fourth, a clip from scene 36 where Bailey and Daniel confront Closar also survives in that July edition of Horizon. Similarly, 625 cannot ascertain full details on what is within, but two clips from it appear in the previously mentioned Future Fantastic program and another, a 2006 BBC4 documentary called Machine Men. The first, shots 378 and 379, is Bailey challenging Closar about his anti-robot sentiments, with the second, shots 382 through to and including 384, shows Daniel being asked to touch the medievalist. Towards Tomorrow, Robot features the story's author Isaac Asimov being interviewed, and the Series 2 clip in question was used to illustrate his reflections on the various reasons for disregarding purely functional considerations in robot design and to create more humanoid-looking equivalents. Tony is the name given to a robot whom is placed with Claire Belmont, their husband working for the robotics company. The point of this is to test a new range of domestic robots as a field experiment, with Larry Belmont trying to relinquish his wife's fears about the devices. The episode ends with Claire growing attached to Tony over the course of the story, resulting in depression whenever the demonstration concludes. The 146-second video extract, which has the first shot completely covered and the second partially obscured by another part of the documentary audio-wise, showcases Mrs. Belmont being introduced to Tony by her husband and robot psychologist Dr. Jensen.
There are reasons why human beings may disregard function and build robots in the shape of humans, even though this would greatly complicate the matter. In the first place, if you want a robot to be as versatile as a man and yet live in our environment, then it would be nice to have him with the rough dimensions and shape and bending ability of a man, because then he would find all the objects in the environment built for human beings would also be built for him.
Claire, while I'm away, we'd like you to take charge of TN3.
TN3 is a robot.
A robot?
The existent video extracts is from pretty early on in the episode, making up material from scene 4. Progressing further on into the episode and making our way to the 12th and 13th is where we can find the lone 2-minute audio clip from Trevor's collection. 3 breaks in the segment prevent it from being a complete portion of this area of the instalment, but in summation, Claire walks into her kitchen at night, discovering Tony looking at and processing a magazine in the blackness, courtesy of special vision. After explaining that he needs to assimilate all details available of whatever nature, Claire refuses the offer of a cup of tea by the android, which leads to an argument powered by emotions on the human half and ultimately ends up with Tony making her realise that failure to accept himself as merely an appliance like Claire's vacuum cleaner or washing machine will also lead to failure in regards to the overall field experiment. On the other side of this Asimov coin, Lyra displays a factory plant belonging to the corporation United Robots, having recently completed a new batch of humanoid androids. A skeptical journalist by the name of Milton Brooke, under a press stigmata that robots are a menace, is shown one of the new creations to try and ease tensions. Selected is RB34, or simply known as Herbie. Production manager Ash collects them and is horrified to discover that they can read the minds of humans, very much going against what Herbie was enrolled to do. The video material recovered demonstrates 45 seconds from the very start of the episode, 1 minute 15 seconds from scene 7, and another 28 seconds from scene 10. It should be noted that, additionally, a duo of audio clips from Trevor Wells's collection covers approximately another 4 minutes and 5 seconds of the episode, with the first of these clips overlapping with the end of the first video segment and extending into scene 8. The last 170 seconds of sound only covers a sizable chunk of the conclusion, with Herbie being defeated utilizing the 3 laws of robotics to challenge what he has been doing in the story's progression. Using Zeta Minor to help summarize the footage, the existing first 45 seconds encompasses the initial 10 camera shots of the episode, but these are in various statuses of completion, as they have been truncated in places or have their audio obscured thanks to how they were used in the Towards Tomorrow episode originally. A noticeable example is that the Out of the Unknown episode opening tradition of displaying the teleplay's title, author name and the adapter's name exists within, but has the third of these cut out. The second clip, which is the one that extends slightly onwards in audio only thanks to Trevor Wells's tapes, displays 75 seconds from scene 7, where Ash collects Herbie and discovers what the robot is able to do. The video part here ends with the former locking up the robot in a cupboard, with partially obscured audio thanks to narration by Asimov. This relevant audio clip, again of 75 seconds in length, also displays the part where Herbie makes the suggestion of being locked up in the cupboard. A break in the clip reportedly happens where in this integer the robot discovers some kind of romantic magazine in the cupboard and the clip resumes with them reading from it. This then goes into the beginning of scene 8 with the character of Lanning handing out glasses of sherry to an increasingly nervous Brooke, who is getting impatient about the delays of the demonstration. 2 more breaks in the clip, which includes the losses of dialogue, are present, but the rest of the extract demonstrates Ash arriving on scene, a heated exchange between Lanning and Brooke, and it ending with the declaration that they should all go see Herbie. The last video clip, 28 seconds, shows 3 shots from scene 10 where Lanning, Susan Calvin, Ash and Bogut are discussing the problem of a telepathic robot. After this chapter, Series 3, Episode 7, The Naked Sun, would ultimately conclude an 8-installment sub-series of Isaac Asimov adaptations that are prevalent in the timeline of Out of the Unknown. Sadly, we can only watch half of these today, with one being a reconstruction, but for the time they proved to be some of the most acclaimed and memorable episodes of the show's history, whether it be the Peter Cushing leading The Caves of Steel or the Doctor Who parallel The Prophet. Of all the missing productions from the show, they are also the least likely to be found, sadly, but long may the memories and reputations continue. From this Series 2 concluding episode, there are 6 audio extracts remaining. A small chunk from Scene 9 is the first, wherein the characters Powell and Donovan are musing over some calculations, with a suggestion for the robot QT1 to be summoned being made. The next, also from Scene 9, displays QT1 giving a sermon to its fellow kind, with the conversation ensuing being this main robot philosophizing about the control humans have on them, citing that the biologicals lack a reverence for truth and reason. The last 5 words I said just there is direct dialogue from the episode, which I find interesting as the original Asimov story was called Reason. Close to a minute from Scene 11 is then represented, where Donovan is outraged as he comes across QT1 preaching to the rest of the robots. When the automaton is challenged, the following transpires. "They call me the prophet," declares QT1, with the rest of its brethren being called upon to rise and praise the philosopher, with them chanting, "The Master be praised." This is likely where the Lyre Derbyshire track I'm about to discuss was featured in the episode. From my interpretation of Zeta Minor's detailing, the 4th and longest extract showcases some kind of baptism the robot leader performs on their followers, using an oil can and cup. Number 5, set within Scene 15, I think can be summarised well with the dialogue by QT1 present within. "Go to your officer's room and pack up your personal belongings, especially your revolting food. Then you may join your wives and reflect upon reason." The final extract, Scene 19, displays the construction of QT13 in an attempt of displaying superiority by the humans. In addition to these auditory trimmings, on the album, BBC Radiophonic Music, the track Ziwi Zai Ziwi Zi Oo 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 was featured. It was created by the Lyre Derbyshire and was used at least twice in The Prophet. This track also leads to one of the weirder facts that I know about the show, one which champions a clip from Lyre being used in the title sequence for Malcolm in the Middle. A successful music act that has emerged in the new millennium is Die Antwoord, a South African hip-hop duo that has proved successful but also controversial according to Wikipedia. In 2012, their album Tension featured a track called Hey Sexy, which used this track from The Prophet as essentially a foundation for the rest of the song. Listening to this track whilst writing this bit was a weird and painful experience, since it's a music genre that really isn't for me. The background of the track is the instrumental of the ZYZ tune, but has a loud booming guitar interpolation of the same track over it with, I'm assuming, the band member Ninja adding his own human vocal version of the whoop whoop synth from the original on top. The only positive experience I got listening to the track was that I was finally called sexy by somebody after 26 years on this planet. In more recent years, a band incarnation of the Radiophonic Workshop has performed the original in concert and has used images of the robots from the episode as visualizers.